Turn ideas into gold. Let the magic unfold. Every story to be told makes the world a place to hold.
Thank you for joining us on Beyond the Blueprint. We are excited to have Jay Schimpf here with us, and he is the president and CEO of Authenticus. And this is going to be really exciting, especially for the designers out there. I was fortunate enough to participate in an affordable housing initiative, and we were hosted by Jay's company. They have this amazing warehouse just inside of Houston, like inside the Beltway. And within this warehouse, they have virtual reality, augmented reality, giant projectors that actually shine plans and images on the floors, the walls. It's amazing. It's immersive. And so I would love, Jay, what is this? Where did it start? Give us the history. What is this?
Sure. Well, thanks, Bren, for having me on, and just a pleasure. And I love what you're doing and educating people out there. Honestly, I feel like that's a huge part of my job is actually educating people on first, what is this technology? And then two, how can it help them? Because it is been a evolving market when it comes to the different technologies and how they're used. But to go back on where this started, I used to be a designer and a builder, and it really started with the frustrations of trying to help clients understand what they're getting ready to build. And I always thought it needed to be just thicker building specs. Just keep on piling on the building specs until you're as black and white as possibly can be, and there wouldn't be any room for discrepancies and misinterpretations. And it really wasn't that. It really came down to visualization, that most people can't visualize what you're trying to tell them. They might say they understand, but then when you actually put the physical object or room or whatever it is that you're doing in front of them, they're like, "Oh, that's what that looks like. I don't like it." And all of us industry professionals, we do our best to try to mitigate most of that. And a lot of these clients rely on us and put their faith in us that we're going to be building or designing what is truly in their mind. And that's obviously a hard feet. And so that's the beginning of where we Authenticus. Authenticus is Latin, so it's a Latin-based root word. And honestly, from the family ties, my kids are learning Latin, so I'm learning Latin. So that was a little bit of where Latin came into this. But because we are global, it also allowed us to not necessarily be one language where, Latin can obviously interface with many languages. And so that gave us a root company name to spread across most of the world. And so anyways, it started with projecting plans because spatial design is something that you can't really achieve in virtual reality. And I'll get into virtual reality later, but really just the projected plans, it really goes back to even looking at healthcare design and what they do in that industry, which is where I got some of the concept here is the physical mock-ups. In medical design, they physically build. In fact, there's companies that make kits for building rooms out of cardboard, and then they stage it. And that staging part was, that makes a lot of sense. And it's a very important, every square inch matters in medical design. So when you're designing medical, whether it's a OR room or just a guest room, everything matters in there, and they're trying to maximize the space and wall coverage. So they design off a wall. So anyways, so that's where it started to come from. And so we figured out how to project in what is technically a warehouse. I call it a studio. And we just made it really fancy. And then it just started to evolve after that. Yeah, that's where we started a little over 3 years ago now. And it was projecting plans. And first it started on the floor, and then it moved on to the walls, and then we started adding in all the other technologies. But yeah, projected plans was all about spatial design, allowing people to feel, which is the big word here in this and when you start talking about all these different technologies, but to feel depth, space, something that people usually can't do until you're already putting up walls in a house or any project for that matter. And yeah, and so then it just evolved into the other technologies.
That's
So
fantastic. Interesting start. And when you reference the healthcare industry, it's also very common for hospitality. They'll do for a new hotel, they do model room and they mock up how these different suites are going to fit together. Make sure that you get to try it before you buy it, so to speak,
Yep.
and really validating that everything that you've put into the thought process and the design process is going to turn out as close to possible as you've designed it. And I worked for a high-end residential firm straight out of college, and we would sometimes joke that some of these wealthy clients would have full scale mock up homes because they just had the time and money to be able to just continue building and changing without any regard to the resources. So I'm curious for the types of clients that you bring in to experience these different technologies. Did this come out of a particular industry where you focused on more of the residential side, or was it commercial? And how are these different types of clients reacting to experiencing this technology?
Yeah, no, because my background was kind of design, and then I moved myself into building and got into residential high-end building. The initial clientele that we had was the custom builders or anybody that essentially was building a custom house. Even though that's a fairly small percentage compared to the overall market, that's what initially was our main attraction to our services. As an entrepreneur, you obviously want to have more business, which was my push into working with architect firms and not just, custom builders and even interior designers and saying, look, hey, we got this. It could be for any plan. It doesn't matter if it's residential or commercial. It's still beneficial to physically mock this up, feel it with the furniture and props that we got, and allow your clients to go through it. And so, anyways, so we did start initially residential just because that was where I was already known in and had a lot of contacts. A lot of this year was actually focused on getting more commercial contacts just because we can help both worlds. The funny thing is, along the way, um, architects, they see this, but there's different ways to use this. And we talked about custom builders, but even production builders, for instance. And I won't use the builder per se on this term, but one of the big production builders is a national builder. I met with their lead architect and was talking about all the spec houses they design, and they physically build over 250 houses a year that they just tear down.
Oh my
And they
gosh.
build these up, and that's as a whole company, but still 250 houses that they physically build up just to tear down so they can spatially feel it. And I'm like, how is that cost effective? But I understand like building a house, and if you're going to build the model, you want to perfect it. And so I understand that's what we're doing here, but just the amount of time and money to do that. And then they do it outside. Even when they do it, they're not putting air conditioning or anything in. They're just building up the foundation with the sticks and allowing people to walk around it. And so it's, man, you could recreate digitally here in air conditioning and then add in all the other elements. And so it was like a huge wow moment for them to think about this from a different perspective, that they could achieve the same result, which was spatial feeling, even though it doesn't seem the same, but it is. And so that's how things have progressed over the last couple of years as we've gotten in from custom building to production builders now. Obviously, we're now dealing with commercial, and it really revolves around the different phases and different technologies that we're using, and essentially the clientele for those. For instance, the architects are our main line of business for our projecting studio because that impacts anybody in design. Residential, commercial does not matter, but we always recommend for the architects come in the middle of design. And there's a pain point to architects, and this has been one of our challenges to getting architects as a client. And that challenge point is that architects will come in their client will come in, but sometimes they'll come in when the plans are done, before they start engineering or before they start construction. But the plans are done. They come in here, 99 out of 100 times, you're going to find a change. And you're impacting the floor plan. So you're changing the floor plan, which changes the elevation, which changes the roof plan, which changes. So there's a lot of layers. That's annoying. Now, the client, you just probably save tens of thousands, who knows how much money, and you're now getting something that you were probably going to be unhappy with because now you just found something. But for the architect, they're
Yeah.
like, "Ugh." It's they get paid based off of job completion or square footage or whatever. But so that was one of our obstacles, was trying to get architects to take charge of this process, but do it at the right timing point, which is the
Mhm.
middle design. And so that's been one of our educating things to
Yeah.
architects.
That is
Um,
interesting. A question for you then, in terms of the process, right? So as an architect, my mind is already spinning in all the ways that this could be utilized. Do you have the capability of an architect coming in with a, let's say, like a Revit model and making live changes that are then live projected? I think, see, that's the way to do it, is just convince everybody to come in and do some live, modification, a collaborative design process. And I know there are some designers and architects out there who really don't want the client to see things, because a lot of times the client will latch onto something and, oh, it's half baked. We're not, that's not the final solution, and then they'll fall in love with it, and you feel like you're shoehorned or pigeonholed into something you don't ultimately want. But I
correct.
think there could be something as part of the process to say this is going to be iterative. It is brainstorming, maybe just framing of what that is to both the architect and the client could help relieve some of that pressure.
Mm.
But that's very interesting. Let me start here. Can you define the terms? We've got augmented reality, virtual reality, renderings, visualization, all of these different things. And then what
Yep.
are the different use cases that you've got?
Yeah. Yeah, one, our projecting studio, just projection, 2D projection using PDFs. When we get into augmented reality, AR, that is essentially taking a virtual 3D model of a house or whatever it is and overlaying it on top of the real world, but you are using a device that has a camera and a screen. So generally, a phone, right, or an iPad is usually used for augmented reality. Now, augmented reality can be also used with glasses as well, because you can still augment a virtual world onto the real world and still see it. But usually, when you get into glasses or the headgear of virtual reality and different things like that, it ends up having more features. But just from simplistic terms, augmented reality is taking the real world and the virtual world and putting the virtual model overlapping the real world, but seeing both at the same time. Now we get into virtual reality, which is literally being completely encompassed in the virtual world. You do not see the real world at all. And that's generally what most people understand with gaming and the Oculus Quest, those terminologies that you might have heard at some point, and just being completely immersed in the virtual world. And then there's mixed reality. So it's a combination. The Apple Vision Pro glasses is a great tool for mixed reality. Microsoft has the HoloLens. We have both of those here. And that is headgear that you put on, but you can still see the real world. So it's like glasses in a sort of sense. The Apple Vision Pro glasses is like ski goggles. And so you can see the real world, but then you can see the virtual world at the same time, and they overlap, but you can also interact with it, which is neat. So it's a little bit different, meaning like you can grab the virtual model, you can be sitting there typing on the virtual keyboard, and
Mhm.
it's capturing that. And so that's the big difference between those. And then you mentioned a rendering. So a rendering, the best way to explain that is it's a still shot photo. So you take a 3D model, you build it, and whatever angle that you are looking at, whether it's a front elevation or an interior shot of something, you build the 3D model, then you take a still shot of it, then you export it into a different software where you color, texture, bake it, add sunlight, glares, all the realistic finishes, and then that becomes the rendering. So renderings are basically just still shot images of 3D objects that most of the time with the software that has been advanced throughout the years is now become more photorealistic. And I can name some of those softwares. I'll just name them now just so people understand. For instance, we use 3ds Max. 3ds Max is one of the best modeling softwares. There's some other ones out there. People are mostly known for SketchUp, Revit, Chief Architect, Rhino. These are all fairly common 3D modeling, Twinmotion, Netscape. Anyways, those are all different 3D modeling softwares, and then you can export it, say, to Corona V-Ray is one option, or Lumion is another software where you export it into this rendering software that allows the image to become more lifelike. Now, once you have that 3D model in what we use 3ds Max, it's really the output of what you want to see that model. So we just mentioned the renderings and what they are able to do, still shot photos or animation. There's different things you can do with the 3D model. We take the 3D model and you can plug it into our augmented reality app, just mentioned in the device. So now you can use your own phone or device and being able to walk around or walk in one of the virtual houses or something like that. You can also still take that 3D model and plug it into our what we call our Authenticus XRP extended reality platform. That's a platform that allows you to use all the devices that we have, and so it can be augmented reality, but it can also be the virtual reality or mixed reality. So it's got a lot of capabilities there, and the software is very photorealistic. So you're getting a virtual experience, but in a more realistic environment. As technology continues to improve, everything's continuing to become more and more real. So anyways, that's the terms and how they're used. I think you mentioned how and when are we using them. So
Yeah, are there certain technologies or certain types of visualizations that clients are more attracted to, or the architects love more, or is it just across the board? It's all amazing. Obviously, they're all very complementary in terms of how they could be used.
the interesting problem is that most people don't even know what is out there and accessible. And then when we start talking about here's a quick example is the renderings. We do still shot photorealistic renderings, but we also do 360-degree renderings. We also do animated GIF renderings. Those are three different type of renderings that all do something a little bit different, but they're still a rendering. And one you spin around and see the whole room, that's the 360 versus just the still rendering, or the animated, which is a real or a still rendering with some animated objects onto it like a GIF. And so that's just an example of some things that some people don't even know exist. And so there's a lot of educating on how this is all used, but I will say that generally speaking, we have for us two phases. Phase one is like structural authentication. So using our studio and what we call our grayscaled augmented reality. So that's building a 3D model, but just the structure of it. It's just all gray walls, ceilings, and everything like that. And we use those experiences together sometimes where we'll augment the object on top of the projected plan. So now you're visually getting the ceilings, the interior walls, doors, windows, staircases, anything that's structural, but then also still having the projected plans where you're staging the furniture and being able to see everything all at the same time. That is all great for structural design. Fill it, walk it, change bigger, smaller, whatever the problem might, that you might find. That's like phase one. Phase two is okay, now that you've walked it, you understand that the floor plans are doing this and you're comfortable with all that, you're signing off on all that. You got the elevations, plans are done. Now you got to start working on selections and finishes, which is also a whole other big new task, right? There's a lot of time and effort that goes into selections. And that's the other side. That's where the renderings come in. Those renderings are usually the most cost-effective way to see stuff because it generally isn't as expensive to see just a rendering or a couple renderings. So it comes down to cost at that point. But if you want to do a virtual tour, which is like a web base where it's like a video game going through your house and changing selections like a video game, or augmented reality again, or virtual reality with the glasses, those are all tools that allow you to then look at the finishes and help you, whether it's a room or a whole house, it doesn't matter. That's what we are here to help. And sometimes people just need a little bit, and sometimes people want to see the whole thing. So,
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's fantastic. And I love that it feels very collaborative, just the way in which you're talking about it and the way where clients and designers will come in and sit in the same room and look at things together. So what does the process look like, just at a high level, if someone wants to bring their client here and look at a set of plans and some preliminary designs, how do they do that with you?
Yeah, and it's pretty simple on the beginning phase here because all we need is a PDF of your plans. We'll schedule most studio appointments are about 1 to 2 hours. And so you generally can walk, I'd say an average house is about 4 to 5,000 square feet here in Texas. So you can generally walk that size of a house within 2 hours. Sometimes we get much, much, much bigger, and sometimes people are here all day, but just going off of average. And so if you're just wanting to walk the plans, we just need a PDF and we just need that a day before the appointment that you booked. If you want to do the augmented reality experience at the same time, we do need your CAD files so we can build the 3D model. Unless you already have a 3D model, then you can just send it to us. And so that allows us to have everything ready for your appointment so you can structurally walk and see everything. And one neat little benefit, which I mentioned earlier, was our augmented reality can be done on your own device. So you don't actually have to come here physically here to experience it. You can download it onto your own device. We just send you a QR code. You can go out to your lot and walk it on your lot, and everything is to scale out there. And you can also look out your future windows and doors and see your future views. So it's something that's pretty neat. Now, you can't feel the depth in virtual reality, as I mentioned at the beginning. So that's why our studio is still applicable. But from a visual standpoint, you can still do all that, especially if you're on any property that you actually have the ability to move the house somewhere and you might want a different view. You can experience all that real quick within seconds by just using your own device. So that's what you do here, first phase. And then, like I said, then when you finish the plans, sometimes people come back a second time just to validate what was changed. And then we'll help you with the renderings if you need renderings. We do offer packages, so some people can buy a package and you get all of it included. And so a lot of people need renderings for ACC approvals in different neighborhoods and stuff like that. And so we incorporate all that. And then some clients, hey, I really wanna go through the whole thing. And so we help them. That's when we start partnering with the builder or the interior designer, because now the architect is probably mostly out of the picture. And so now we're working hand in hand with the architect and designer. And we're essentially a team of architects and builders, interior designers, like meaning we're an extension of them. So we essentially want to collaborate with these trades because we're all trying to achieve the same thing, and we're just being the what we call the canvas, because it's like your design or your vision, our canvas, because we're not making the design, we're not designing or architecting any of this ourselves, and that's with
Oh, that's
developers and real estate agents as well.
perfect. It's interesting when I think about all this technology that's available and the types of clients that we work with, and they want to be able to make decisions faster. They want to feel confident in those decisions. Obviously, time is money. A lot of our commercial clients, they sign these leases and then they say, we got to get it open. And every day that they're not open, they're going to lose money. So, are there tangible, measurable benefits of going through this process and using these technologies? We like to talk a lot about measuring what matters because as designers, it can oftentimes be very difficult to communicate what is the value of design or what is the value of this decision versus another one. And so I'm curious, what types of metrics are you guys tracking over there to see how
Yeah,
this is
no,
impacting your clients?
no, good question. And I'll use, there's always one example that always comes to mind that was pretty interesting. So because you can physically walk in, and I'm going to use this example, say the master shower. So architect draws a plan, he draws it for a two-person shower. It by paper and by measurements can fit two people. Those two people, we mock up the bathroom, the shower, we have walls and different partitions on wheels, and so we put it up. The client the clients walk into the shower together. They are touching shoulders. Yes,
Mm,
they're both standing in the shower together. Yes, they both could take a shower together, but they were literally touching shoulders. And they're like, I don't want to touch you. This is not enough room. We're never going to shower together if we're literally bumping. There's no way that's going to
yeah.
work. And so they had to grow the shower. They only grew it by 18 inches, But it was that right there. If you literally put a number to growing a shower after it's already been poured, tiled,
Hmm.
there's no way they would have experienced that together until they finally moved into the house, right? And just imagine all that. That's over 20 to $30,000 of just 18 inches, but how much more compounding changes you would have to do to that little area for 18 inches. And yeah, they found that in a couple minutes and they made that change. And the experience, I think, cost them $500 here, and they saved themselves probably 30 some $1,000 just from that little shower experience. And that's just one example. I've seen big changes happen. That was a small change. I've seen big changes where people have literally redone, because you can see the walls, and not only can you see the floor, but you can see the walls and the cut throughs and everything on our walls, projected to scale too. And so when you started putting the wall up there where the ceiling was and the windows, and realized how much, this is another good example, that there was at least 20 feet of space between the top of the door and the ceiling. The client was like, holy smokes, that is, I don't know what I'm going to stick there. That looks horrific.
Yeah. What kind of
But there,
art do you want to put up there?
yeah, it was like there, but there was no way you can see that and get a visual of that looking at 2D plans. And so it wasn't until they experienced that here that they were like, holy smokes, they had to go back and redesign the whole ceiling, which was a roof plan. That would have been over $100,000. It was a big house too. Yeah, we don't want people to, we're not trying to pick apart architects' mistakes. It's not so much that, it's just architects hearing one thing from the client, drawing it on there, giving them what they think they want, but then the client isn't able to truly understand what is being drawn until it's physically built. So it's crazy, the disconnect. And us professionals, we get it. We know what those are going to look like because we do it all the time. But homeowners, they generally don't, because they don't look at plans every day like we do.
Yeah. You're essentially selling confidence, clarity, and peace of mind to these
Yeah,
different, end users. And how much is that worth? Not having to wonder and second guess and doubt yourself, or like you're saying to these clients, move into a space that really doesn't hit the mark for what they wanted. And there's different levels of expectation, but the more we can manage expectations during the process of design, I think the more goodwill and trust we can start to build with the clients that we service.
for sure. And it's not even, it's not like these architects or builders are trying to get something over the clients. It's just a misunderstanding of what is actually in somebody's head. And that, how else do you explain that? So
Mhm.
visualizations, everyone's on the same page, right?
There we go. Here's one of our last couple questions. As we look at obviously the architecture, interiors, construction industry, we're big users in this augmented reality, virtual reality space. What other industries or different types of people are putting this type of technology to use? Are you seeing artist collaborations or event collaborations? What are some of those use cases that we can start to look for?
Sure. No, it's funny that you mentioned that. One thing that we've actually branched off is the event side ourselves. We've used our space and technology to actually become an immersive venue. And at one point, I think you mentioned about some of the new immersive experiences like Meow Wolf, Art Tech House here in Houston. The Post actually now has a new art exhibit. Art's really starting to capture LED and projection and virtual reality, and starting to combine these technologies for a lot of art or just experiences in general. We're hosting all kinds of events here. So we're doing immersive events and taking people into that environment. I will say what's neat based on your question there, and I'll give Art Tech House the credits here. They actually, if you go to them, they have an XR bar is what it's called. And what you do is you order a drink, and then the drink comes on a little coaster with a little QR code. And so you can scan the QR code, and with your phone, you'll be able to see an augmented object animated happening on your drink. Just a little bit of augmented reality or virtual reality in that environment. Yes, it is starting to get sprinkled in with just the event side of things. In my personal opinion, it's going to be an everyday use when it becomes like this. When we are putting on glasses or contact lenses and having the immersive experience or mixed reality experience with everyday life. Right now, some people might have recognized the movie Kingsman, and people put on glasses and you can see a whole bunch of people sitting around the table and they're all holograms. um that's actually reality. Like, that can happen. Now, right now, you're not just putting on glasses, you're putting on goggles or some of the other mixed reality glasses that are out there on the market, but that actually is achievable today. It's just not, people don't like to put heavy things on their face for very long extended periods of time, or different people don't like putting things on their head, whether it messes up your hair or just doesn't want to have something on your head. So that's why it's not mainstream yet. But once it becomes to this degree where I'm sitting here and I'm just tapping my glass and everyone in this room is holographic, and vice versa, I'm holographic in your world at the moment, that is a reality that is very close. And AI is speeding everything up. And even with technology, with the content, all this exists now. It's just not mainstream yet because it's not affordable yet. But still, some of it's still in the military, some of it's still very high level, going through a lot of it. But I'd say in the next 5 years, you're going to definitely see things coming out where you would have thought only in the movies, but it's reality. So we are going to have augmented and virtual mixed reality as part of our everyday life in the very near future.
We just got to solve the gravity problem and just everything should hover in front of us. We'll be golden.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
So you mentioned a few times about pricing and things like that. That's always the million
Yeah.
dollar question is if someone wants to go through this process, what should they budget?
Sure. We charge for our studio just off of time used, and most people will probably spend anywhere from $500 to $1,000 for the studio experience, and then you add in, renderings or just the augmented reality experience, and you're looking at probably, $1,500 to $2,000. If you get into the more complex virtual reality where we're finishing everything, the full model done, completed, and you're going through the full experience, you can get closer to the $5,000 experience, or $5 to $6,000 price point. It just depends on how big the project is. Smaller houses will just depends on the size, but commercial wise, it doesn't matter how big it is either. We're doing high rises and multifamily all over the place, and so it does not matter the size. Obviously, the budgets change when you get into commercial, but because I come from the residential world, I am mindful of people's budgets and what they're doing. So I tried to price this with our services to where it is very affordable, because and the underlying thing is I'm here to help. I, by my own personal guidance, have always wanted to help in any way. And sure, I want to make money and make business work, but at the same time, I've made it affordable that most homeowners can still afford some level of authenticating without breaking the bank. And I can justify the, a couple $1,000s to tens of thousands of dollars. You can easily justify that metric pretty easy. Nobody likes to spend money on something that they're not sure they're going to get the value out of. And we've been doing this for a couple years, and now we got a bunch of other companies that are starting to copycat us, which is a compliment to a degree, but you can see that this is definitely something that helps and is growing. So
Yeah. What about the app that you'd mentioned? Is that something that is standalone, or do you have to go through, I guess, the process with you in order to access that application?
yeah, you could go to the app stores right now and look up Authenticus AR, and the app's right there in the store right now. It's free to download. There's a lot of samples on there that you can play with. It's just if you want your own project in that, then that's where we end up charging for it. But no, people can definitely experience it right now and demos, and you can see a lot of our sample work on our website at authenticusservices.com. We are actually getting ready to our website's getting redone right now. A lot of what we are talking about is very educational, and that's been our biggest challenge, is trying to educate the population on what is out there, how we can help, and it's just a lot. So we're redoing our website to be more of an educational tool to help people understand all of this. So that's getting done real soon. But yeah, we're here to help. It's what I've always wanted to do, and yeah.
It's fantastic. Last question. If someone wants to, come by, if they want to do a demo, do you do open houses or any other types of events that they can come and attend?
Yeah, we do. If it's a company, because we work mostly B2B, but we do service people that are strictly homeowners, so you can still come and find out everything. I'm just saying we normally can give tours to companies, but we do have lots. Our Authenticus Houston Instagram handle or TikTok or Facebook or YouTube. We're on all the social media channels. There's a lot of content on all those, so you can definitely see all the different things with people using them, but you can get a demo done. Our newest technology is pretty cool with using Apple Vision Pro glasses. Unfortunately, those are very expensive, so you have to come here to use those unless you got some at home. But yeah, you can definitely go to our website. You can schedule a call. We can definitely talk, answer any questions that way. Or yeah, we do offer tours as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Jay, for your time today. This has been very enlightening. I feel like I've learned something, and I can't wait for us to be able to come and utilize some of this technology.
Yeah, look forward to having you. And any way we can help, we're here.
All right. Thanks so much.
Turn our tears into gold. Let the magic